All right, y'all. Today we're going to talk a little bit about how to get everything done on your to-do list, how to completely revamp your productivity so that you don't end your day feeling like, man, I didn't get anything done. Because we all fall into that. So I'm going to give you 10 tips. I got my little notes here because they're a little extensive. But if you can listen at the beginning, I'm going to talk about some mental tricks, kind of revamping the way we're approaching situations mentally. And then at the end, we're going to come up with some very technical, straightforward approaches to getting everything done that you need to get done. So, first of all, I want to tell you guys there was a study with a placebo. And what they did is they took a group of people and they told half of the people that, this pill would help them be able to focus better, get more done. Of course, it was just like a sugar pill. So those people believed that they were getting some sort of boost in energy, mental clarity, so that they could be more effective in what they were doing. Well, even though it was just a sugar pill, that half of the group was way more productive. So what does this tell us? That if we believe we can be this productive, we can. So a lot of it is about how we're framing the tasks that we need to do in our minds. So mental fatigue is just a feeling. Say that to yourself. Mental fatigue is just a feeling. Have you ever been around one of those people who talks a lot about how much they have to do and how their life's so hard and they just don't know how they're ever going to get everything done? It's almost exhausting to listen to that type of person. And it's because they have framed their task list to be such a big deal that they're never going to get what they want to get done accomplished. So the best thing to do is to reframe that in your brain. Maybe use affirmations, but tell yourself it's not that big a deal. It is what it is, and I'm going to get it done. Because the more we sit in that discomfort and we dwell on how much we have to do, the harder we're making it on ourselves and the less effective we're going to be. So those are the first two. Third is find an internal locus of control. So, I don't know, you guys might have experienced this when you walk into work and you kind of know you're tired, but you're trying to think positive and get past it. And someone says, man, you look tired. And the first thing you want to do is probably say, yeah, I am. I'm really tired. But what that's doing is that's draining you even more mentally. So what you do is you say, no, I'm good. I feel fine. And you're literally tricking your brain. You are taking back control of your internal feelings about the entire situation. So don't let outside factors or people tell you that you're tired or that you have too much going on, because it's very easy to buy into that. So just be aware that that's happening. And to be honest, who knows, maybe they're right, but it's not helpful to tell ourselves that. So pay attention to that narrative you have going on about your day. All right, so it's not about how hard the actual work is. It's about how hard you think it is. I was making sure I was talking right. Again, so how we're framing it in our minds is really going to show us how our outcomes are going to be. So a task might be really hard, and they did a study on this too to back it up. They told half of the people that this was going to be a very strenuous activity, that most of the participants before that time hadn't gotten through it. And they told the other group it's not that big a deal, it's just a really easy activity. So as you can imagine, the group that was told how hard it was didn't do very well. Most of them didn't finish the activity. They said afterwards that it was really hard, but it was the exact same activity. But because they had been told how hard it was and how impossible it was to finish, they bought into that. So just be aware that things are as hard as we make them. So it's really important to build self-efficacy. So some tricks to doing this are remind yourself that if you've done something similar to the task at hand before, then you can do it again. Just remind yourself of that. If you haven't done the task before, then think about people who have. Look at those people and compare yourselves to them and think really hard. Are they really that much more capable than you? The best example I can think of is when I was a single mom for a while. I used to think, oh my gosh, every single day I thought there's no way I can do this. I have to work, I have to go to school, I have a kid. And the list every day was just, out of control. But what I did was I paid attention to other women I knew who had been single moms, and some of them became amazing businesswomen and executives. And I knew if they could do it, I could do it. So sometimes we just need to remind ourselves of that. All right. Then there's what we call I'm going to try to say this right, Zagerneck effect, which means that whatever we start, we're prone to finish. So sometimes it's not even about finishing the task or thinking about finishing the task. We just need to get started on it. Just don't think about it too much. Just go and do it. Because we tend as humans to want to finish what we started. And that's what this effect is talking about, that it drives us nuts to have unfinished business, in a sense. So if you start your business, you're going to finish it. So just get it started. Don't worry so much about the finish. Just get started. All right. And then when it comes to temptation, things like Facebook, snack breaks, whatever it may be, it's not so much about giving into the temptation that takes up a lot of mental capacity, but what it is the thought of the temptation. So if we're sitting there dwelling on it and dwelling on it and dwelling on it, that's draining our mental energy. We might as well just give in to the temptation for a few minutes, because it's draining our mental energy. So what we do is we remove temptations. Some people put blocks on their work computers to where they can't get into Facebook or Instagram, so that way they're not even tempted to look at it, and their productivity shoots up. You think about it in terms of your diet. If you don't have junk in your cabinets downstairs, then you're probably not going to eat junk. The temptation's not going to be there. So just remove the temptations from your life as best you can. And then it's really important to note that more time working doesn't necessarily mean you're more productive. They did a study in office workers that go in for 8 hours a day. And what they found was that, y'all aren't going to believe this, they only got 2 hours worth of work done in 8 hours. The rest of it was spent snacking, calling their spouse on the phone, searching on Facebook, just doing stuff to ride the clock. So that sort of tells us that it's not about how long we work. Some people just work crazy hours, 80 hours a week, but they're actually not getting that much done. They're just using so much mental capacity and spinning their wheels. So what it would be better to do is just get yourself into a situation where you can get a lot done at once. Just knock it out. And then take a break, because you're not being any more effective by dragging these activities out. Trust me. Apparently 90 minutes is our typical brain capacity to keep focus. So, try to dive into your projects for an hour and a half, 2 hours max, and then take a break. Go do something else, because you're not being effective after that point. So just remind yourself of that. Mindful activities are also really good at clearing out your mental space. We're constantly looking at so many things, especially in our society. We're very privileged and we have everything at our fingertips. So we're thinking about a million things at once. So we've got to clear out some space so that tasks don't feel so big. So really minimize one thing at a time and practice mindfulness. Multitasking doesn't exist, and I'll get into that a little more in a minute, but focus at one thing at a time. You don't need to do everything at once. Okay, this one's actually kind of new to me. Hydrotherapy. Cold showers, if you will. I used to think that was bogus, but apparently it's as ancient as time itself. Well, maybe not that ancient. That doesn't make sense. But it's also evidence-based now. So they're finding out that there's actually a lot of benefits to cold water therapy. So the way it works is it activates the sympathetic nervous system. It wakes you up. It gets you alert. When you drink a lot of caffeine, you get that way, but then you crash and you kind of feel a little sick. So hydrotherapy will give you that rush. It'll give you that alertness without the crash, which is awesome. Okay, you guys have heard of work hard, play hard. So there's a little bit of truth to that. Just like I was saying before, it's really not effective to work all day. It's not. And we live in a society that really glamorizes overworking. If you call someone in the middle of the day and you're at work and they say, "Oh, I'm just sitting down watching my favorite show," what's the first thing that comes to your mind? Lazy. At least that's how I used to be. But no, actually, rest is very productive. They are clearing out their mental capacity. They're clearing out mental space. So that way, when they get back to work, they're way more effective than I am, who's been working all day. So that's pretty cool to think of. And these breaks can be anything we enjoy. So anything that gets the stress off of us for a little bit, kind of resets us. Studies have shown people are more effective when they take breaks. So don't shame yourself for taking a break. Take a break if you feel like taking one. And do something that you really enjoy. Don't feel like you got to do work on your break. Don't do that. Okay, power napping can be beneficial, but you want to limit that time to 20 to 30 minutes. Otherwise, you're going to get into a deep sleep cycle, and at that point, it's just going to be more beneficial to sleep for an hour and a half, at least. So either do the 20 to 30 minutes or go for the full sleep cycle, an hour and a half. Why? Because I don't know if you've heard from different sources, different people, that some of them love power naps and they feel energy afterwards. And then you hear other people say, oh, well, they kind of drain me. That's probably because those people have gone beyond the 30 minutes. So they've entered a deep sleep cycle. And when you get woken up out of that, it's no fun. So think about those time frames as far as power napping. If you're into prayer and meditation, again, practice it. Do it daily, multiple times throughout the day, because it's going to get your mind on one thing instead of 1,000 things. So, even if you're not religious, just meditate. And this can be as simple as closing your eyes and focusing on an object. I think when I first started meditating, one of the practices I loved was to close my eyes and imagine a cube in the middle of the room. And I would just stare at that cube with my mind. And as I was breathing, I would feel my stress just continue to release. So, meditation and prayer are super beneficial. Okay, then let's talk about rewards. We're getting to the end here, so get to some good stuff. So, using rewards. It is not effective to reward the process. It's effective to reward the end goal. So, think about salespeople. If they're at a base, if you work 100 hours this week, you get a $1,000 bonus. Okay, so all they're going to do is busy work for the week. They're going to get to that 100 hours, but they're going to do busy work to get there. They're not going to be effective. But if you say, make 10 sales this week, you get a $1,000 bonus. They're not going to work nearly that long, but the work they're going to do is going to be wholeheartedly, and they're going to want that bonus. So they might work 20 hours and make 10 sales. Another example of that is at a daycare. The daycare center offered, what was it? Okay, so if you were late, you got charged. And it turned out that parents started being late more often because then their lateness was justified. See? So don't use punishments or rewards when they're not necessary. Save them, but do use them, because our brains like that. And I know there's so much research and there's so many people that say, like, no, you don't want to have rewards on your mind, but they can actually be beneficial if used correctly. Okay, so keep that in mind. And just remember, your brain gets bored very easily, which leads us into our next point. Vary your stimuli throughout the day. So because our brains get so bored, we don't want to stay focused on something for too long. We can't. We physically cannot. So switch it up. Do different things. That might even mean, work for 2 hours, but spend 30 minutes on one task, 30 minutes on another, and break it up. Because if you're doing the same thing that long, your brain's going to get bored and it's not going to be working effectively anymore. So switch it up, switch up your stimuli. That's why I also like the idea of the hydrotherapy. Because instead of just chugging coffee all day, just jump in a shower and then you're not going to crash. So switch it up. All right. I said I was going to come back to multitasking, so I want to do that. We cannot physically multitask. Our brains, it's shown in science that our brains cannot focus on two things at one time. We can switch really fast back and forth between two things, but we cannot focus on both of them at the same time. So because of this, don't try to multitask. Ways that you can guard yourself from not multitasking is turn off your notifications on your phone. I guarantee you it can wait. Only check it certain times of the day. And when you're responding to emails, you might want to do that later in the day. Or just choose two times in the day. Because if you do it later in the day, you're not going to have to deal with the thought that, oh no, what if they email me back and I'm not emailing back? So you give yourself more time afterwards and you don't feel like you need to constantly check it. So really be strategic with your timing on when you're doing things throughout the day. And just don't multitask. And then use batching. So put a lot of projects together at one time. This might sound like I'm going against what I just said, but let's just hear me out. So say you need to respond to emails, check in with clients, do inventory. You need to do those things in 2 hours. No. You need to do those things over the next 6 hours. And you're thinking, gosh, this is, this takes me a lot of time to do. Don't spread it out over the 2 hours. Fit it into 2. Go at it hard for 2 hours and be done with it. Then go do something you enjoy. Because again, science shows that we are not productive past a certain point. So even if you try to drag that out, you might think, oh, I'm giving myself a break by giving myself more time. It's actually counterproductive. It's really weird, but really interesting. Don't list too many projects on the day at once. Just, we don't feel accomplished if we have 100 things to do and we only get 2 things done. Be realistic with how many things you can put on there and put timelines and dates on stuff so that you don't procrastinate. Last point goes along with what I just said. Optimize your to-do list. So again, don't put too much on there, and also don't overuse to-do lists. Have you ever sat down and you're like going to make your to-do list, and then 30 minutes later you're still looking at it trying to figure out how much time you need and what you're going to do? Don't do that. Just use it as a guide. Use it as a guide, and don't put a lot on there. Put a little note, like a 1-word note. I've heard sometimes people say, like, especially young people by their teachers, they'll get after them like, have you why don't you make a to-do list for your homework? Just do it as it comes. Just do it, and then put a little note on a to-do list. Don't write a whole narrative on your to-do list. And then at the end of the day, check off what you got accomplished. That's it. All right. And again, give yourself a deadline. Deadlines are great because that way we won't procrastinate. So I hope these helped. I'm going to be coming out with some more tips as well in the future. This is all based on other people's research, so don't think at all that I'm the one that came up with this stuff. I'm just regurgitating what was helpful for me. So I hope this helped you guys, and have a great and productive day.